Mom insisted. It wasn't that serious. While my nervous system still jolted at raised voices and slammed doors, she said it casually, like we were rating a movie, not my childhood. Her fingers picked at the seam of the couch cushion, eyes on the TV where some cooking show was on mute. I felt my shoulders climb up toward my ears, that automatic brace I do when I know the blow won't be physical but it's going to land somewhere. The space between us felt crowded. My therapist's words, the memory of splintered doorframes, the echo of my dad's voice rattling in my bones. I realized I was gripping my mug so hard my knuckles were white, tea long gone cold. It was a Sunday afternoon 2 weeks ago. I'd driven an hour and a half to my parents' house because my therapist suggested I try expressing some of this out loud, if it ever feels safe to do so. That's the funny part. It doesn't feel safe, that's literally the problem, but I thought maybe, if I approached it gently and picked the right day, we could nudge the door open a little. Instead, I got, it wasn't that serious, and the familiar feeling that I'd hallucinated the first 20 years of my life. For context, I'm 29F. My parents are early 60s. Dad was the yeller, Mom was the minimizer. If you grew up like that, you probably already know the script. He'd slam doors, shout until his voice cracked, pace the hallway like a caged animal. She'd wring her hands and say things like, "He's just stressed," or "We don't need to upset him." And later, when I'd bring it up, "He never actually hit you, did he?" Like the absence of a fist erased everything else. I didn't have the word hypervigilant as a kid. I just knew that the sound of keys in the front door meant my whole body needed to shut up and behave. I knew the way footsteps changed. Heavy steps meant he'd had a bad day. Lighter steps meant we were safe for at least the next hour. I knew the particular click of the bathroom cabinet that meant he'd started drinking for the night. And I knew the sound of doors. My therapist would probably tell me to describe one memory at a time so it doesn't feel like a blur. So here's one. I'm 11. It's winter. I'm in my room doing homework, pencil smudging on the page because my hands are sweaty. My brother, 8 at the time, is in the lounge room playing PlayStation. Dad comes home, slams the front door so hard the frame shakes. Mom's "Hi, honey," floats down the hallway in that too bright voice she uses with him. There's a muffled conversation, argument about something stupid like a bill or the fact that she didn't defrost the right meat. His voice gets louder, sharper. I'm counting the seconds between shouts like seconds between thunder and lightning. Then I hear it. The sharp bang of the bedroom door. Then another. Then the bathroom door. Then finally my own door as he stalks down the hall, throwing them open to see who's lurking around. Mine slams into the wall. I jump so hard my pencil line streaks right off the page. "Why is this light on?" he barks. "I'm doing homework," I say, or try to. My voice comes out thin. "Electricity doesn't grow on trees," he snaps, because he always gets sayings wrong and stomps away. He doesn't close the door gently. He shoves it so it hits the frame with a crack I feel in my teeth. After he goes, I sit there, heart pounding, stomach twisting, pretending to keep working while my brain screams run. Mom comes in an hour later with folded laundry and says, "Don't mind him, he's had a hard day." Like we all didn't just watch the emotional equivalent of a grenade go off. So yeah. It wasn't that serious. Hits different when your body still reacts to any slammed door like it's 2005 and your math homework might be the thing that tips your dad over the edge. Back to the living room. Mom and I were alone because Dad had taken my brother to Bunnings, which is like their father-son church. I timed my visit that way on purpose, a detail that in itself says a lot. The TV was on low, some guy flambeing something while captions scrolled. The heater wheezed in the corner. The whole house smelled like air freshener and whatever cleaning product she'd used that morning. It's the same smell I associate with being told to clean up your face before Dad got home. I'd started the conversation clumsily. "Therapy's been interesting," I said, picking at a loose thread on my jeans. "Oh," she didn't look away from the TV. "Still going to that girl?" "Yeah," I said. "Her name is Lena," she hummed, non-committal. "We've been talking about growing up here," I ventured. "Like how things were, how we dealt with stress, that kind of stuff." That's when she gave me the first warning sign. the stiff shoulders. Well, everyone's got something to blame their parents for these days, she said lightly. We did our best. I know you did your best, I said quickly, because I knew if I didn't front-load that, she'd shut down completely. It's not about blaming. It's about understanding why my body reacts the way it does now. What do you mean, reacts? I took a breath. I mean, I still jump at loud noises. Raised voices make me feel like I'm gonna throw up. If a door slams, I freeze, even if it's just my neighbor closing theirs. My therapist says that's my nervous system remembering. She blinked, finally turning to face me. Remembering what? Your father never laid a hand on you. There it was. The hill she's chosen to die on. No fists, no problem. He didn't have to, I said quietly. The yelling was enough. The slamming, the threats, the silent treatment. That stuff wires you a certain way. She snorted. You're being dramatic. It wasn't that serious. And we're back at the starting line. In that moment, I swear I could feel two versions of myself sitting on that couch. The kid version who hears that sentence and immediately thinks, oh, okay, I overreacted, it wasn't a big deal, I'm so stupid for making a fuss. And the adult version, who sat in a therapist's office and learned words like fight or flight, and emotional neglect and minimization, and knows, logically, that what happened was not nothing. The kid almost won. My mouth opened, ready to say, yeah, I guess, just to smooth the wrinkles out of her forehead. But my leg was bouncing so hard my foot actually hit the coffee table, making the remote rattle. That little noise snapped me back into my body. It was serious, I said, before I could talk myself out of it. Her lips pressed into a line. He raised his voice sometimes, she said. Lots of dads did. It's how it was back then. He didn't just raise his voice, I said, heat creeping up my neck. He screamed. He followed us down the hallway. He punched walls. He broke plates. He called me names. You'd take his side and then tell me later to just ignore him. That's not nothing, Mom. She flinched just slightly. I noticed it because I know every micro-expression on that woman's face. He was under a lot of pressure, she said. We didn't have much money. He worked long hours. He didn't mean half of what he said. But he said it, I replied. And I heard it. My body heard it. She exhaled loudly, turning back to the TV as if the man flambeing was suddenly fascinating. I really don't appreciate you coming here and digging all this up, she said. It makes me feel like a terrible mother. There it was again. Me saying I was hurt, and her hearing you're a monster. I'm not saying you were a terrible mother, I said, trying to keep my voice level. I'm saying some of the things that happened here were harmful, and I'm still dealing with the consequences. Everyone's dealing with something, she shot back. You think my childhood was a walk in the park? My father hit us with a belt. Bleeding sometimes. We didn't run off to therapy and call it trauma. I'd been expecting this one. The trauma Olympics. You also once told me you used to hide under the bed when you heard his car in the driveway, I said gently. That sounds like trauma to me. It was different, she snapped. We had no choice. You kids today, you make everything a big drama. It wasn't that serious. There it was again, like a refrain. Here's what my therapist said when I described all this in her office later. The comfy chair under me and a box of tissues already half empty on the coffee table. She's talking about her tolerance, not your experience. She's saying, it wasn't that serious to me, but you're allowed to decide how serious it was for you. Sitting in my parents' living room, I didn't feel allowed to decide anything. I felt like I was 13 again, trying to explain why I was crying and being told I was too sensitive, that it was just a joke, that your father had a hard day, don't make it worse. I realized I was scanning the room for exits, the way I always do in that house. Front door to my right, sliding glass door to the backyard behind her, hallway to my old room to the left. My body had already assessed escape routes while my brain was still arguing semantics with my mother. You know I still can't stand it when someone slams a door, right? I said, because if I didn't keep talking, I was going to shut down completely. Like, My neighbor's kid runs in and out, and my heart jumps into my throat every time. That's ridiculous, she said. I know, I said. That's the point. It's not rational. My body thinks it's back here, listening for Dad. He never hurt you, she repeated, like an incantation. He hurt me emotionally, I said. You both did sometimes. Ignoring me for days, shouting, telling me I was ungrateful, making me responsible for his moods. That stuff leaves marks too. What do you want from me? She burst out. Do you want me to say we were abusive? Is that what this is about? I hesitated. The word abusive sat heavy in my chest. It's a big word, a sharp one. I'd only recently been able to say it out loud in therapy without wanting to throw up. Hearing it in her mouth made me want to curl up into myself. I want you to stop telling me it wasn't that serious, I said finally. I want you to stop acting like I'm crazy for being affected by it. You don't have to label it anything. You just have to stop erasing it. She shook her head, eyes glistening. You have no idea how hard we worked, she whispered. We put food on the table. We kept a roof over your head. We weren't perfect, but we loved you. You never went without. Except I did. I went without feeling safe. I went without being allowed to be upset, without being told I was making a scene. I went without anyone stepping between me and Dad's anger. But I knew if I said that, the conversation would explode. So I said, I know you worked hard. I'm grateful for what you provided. And also, there were things that really hurt me. Both can be true. She sniffed, wiping at her eyes. I just think this therapist is putting ideas in your head, she muttered. I almost laughed. As if Lena had just handed me a script called How to Ruin Your Parents' Day, and I was dutifully reciting my lines. No, I said. She's helping me name feelings I've had for years. They were always there. I just feel less crazy talking about them now. We sat there in that weird, heavy silence that fills the room after a fight you're pretending not to have. On the TV, the chef was plating something with tweezers. The heater clicked on again. Then she said, softer. It really still bothers you? After all this time, I could have brushed it off. I almost did, but I didn't come all this way to lie. Yeah, I said. It does. My whole body still reacts like I'm here. That's why I'm in therapy. That's why I'm on medication. This isn't me being dramatic. It's me trying to actually function. Her face changed, just a little, like she'd glimpsed the tip of an iceberg without wanting to look down. Medication? She repeated. You're on pills. I nodded. For anxiety and depression. She made a small, strangled noise. Why didn't you tell me? Because the last time I told you I couldn't cope, you said I just needed to go for a walk and drink more water. I said, the words tumbling out now. I knew you'd say it wasn't that serious. She didn't have a comeback for that. I wish I could tell you that this is the part where she sighed, took my hand and said, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. I believe you. It was serious. That's the version of my mother I sometimes meet in dreams. The one who hears me without scrambling to protect her own image. In reality, she took a deep breath, smoothed her hands down her jeans like she was brushing crumbs off, and said, I'm going to put the kettle on. Before walking into the kitchen, I heard cupboards open and shut, the clink of mugs, the hiss of the tap. Then the kettle started up, that familiar whine. My body cataloged every sound like an old habit. I sat on the couch, hands trembling, and wondered if I just made everything worse or if this was what better looks like in the middle, messy, unresolved, too honest. She came back a few minutes later with tea for both of us, placed mine on a coaster, and changed the subject to my job. The conversation slid back into safe topics like it had never left. My boss, my commute, the weather. The words, it wasn't that serious, still hung between us, unsaid but not unsaid. When I left later that afternoon, she hugged me at the door, one of those quick, stiff hugs we do. Drive safe, she said. Text me when you get there. I will, I said. On the way home, I called my friend Zoe from the car, hands-free. Don't worry. As soon as she answered and said, Hey, you okay? I burst into tears. Ugly ones. The kind where your chest heaves and you have to pull over because you can't see properly. I told her everything. The wasn't that serious, the minimizing, the way I'd felt my whole internal world get dismissed in one sentence. She listened. Then she said something that has been bouncing around my head ever since. Of course it was serious. It was serious because it happened to you. That's all it takes. It sounds so obvious written out. But when your whole upbringing has taught you to rank pain on some invisible scale, did you get hit? No? Then shut up, it feels revolutionary. In therapy the next week, I went over it again with Lena. We dissected the conversation like one of those frogs from school science classes. She pointed out every minimizing phrase, every time Mom shifted the focus to her own guilt, every time I slipped into defending myself instead of just stating facts. So what do I even do? I asked, exhausted. Keep banging my head against this wall? Just accept that she's never going to see it the way I do. She tilted her head. You're not responsible for making her see it, she said. You're responsible for not gaslighting yourself when she doesn't. That line hit me harder than anything, because that's what it always comes down to. Not whether my mother ever says, I'm sorry, or my father ever admits he terrified us. Spoiler, he won't. It's whether I can stop letting their version of events overwrite my own. Since that Sunday, I've noticed how often it wasn't that serious pops up. Not just from my mom. From coworkers joking about their psycho exes. From friends shrugging off panic attacks as just stress. From myself even when I'm trying not to cry over things that hurt. And I've started pushing back. Quietly sometimes, loudly others. It felt serious to me. I say, even when my voice shakes, I still jolt at loud voices. If my upstairs neighbor drops something heavy, my heart races. When my boyfriend closes a cupboard too hard, my shoulders jump. Logically, I know I'm safe. My nervous system is slower to catch up. When that happens, I try to talk to myself the way I wish my mom had talked to me. That scared you, I think. It makes sense that you feel on edge. It was serious for your body, even if nothing bad followed. Then I take a breath and feel my feet on the ground and remind myself I'm 29, not 11. I haven't had another big conversation with my mom about the past since that Sunday. We've had small, weirdly stilted ones. She asked me the other day if the pills are helping. She still can't say antidepressants. I told her they are. She nodded and said, good, in this careful, neutral tone, like she'd touched something hot and pulled her hand back. I don't know if she'll ever be able to look back and say, yeah, we messed up there. She's too tangled up in her own pain, her own generational stuff. Her survival strategy was minimizing. Expecting her to drop it is like expecting my nervous system to stop flinching overnight. So I'm trying something different. I'm building a life where my experience doesn't need her stamp of approval to be real. I'm choosing friends who don't laugh off my triggers, a partner who lowers his voice when I flinch instead of mocking me, a therapist who never says, it wasn't that serious, and instead asks, what did that feel like for you? Still hurts, though. I won't pretend it doesn't. There's a special kind of sting that comes from hearing your parents say your worst nights weren't that serious. It makes you doubt yourself in a way nothing else does. That's why I'm writing this, I guess, to put it somewhere outside my head. To say, in black and white, it was serious. Maybe not by my mom's standards. Maybe not by my dad's. Maybe not compared to some horror stories other people have survived. But serious enough that my body learned to brace for impact at any sudden sound. Serious enough that therapy is now a line item in my budget. Serious enough that I had to relearn what normal feels like in a house without shouting. If you grew up with slammed doors and it wasn't that serious, I guess I just want you to know your nervous system doesn't care how they meant it, cares how it felt. And that's valid even if the people who raised you never admit it.